We are live. Hello, everyone. Welcome to one more session. I hope you're not tired yet because we still have a lot of sessions to come. So just like now, we have Jack Moffett, and Jack have been serving as a manager at Boeing for more than 5 years now, leading a small team and supporting user experience and quality assurance for software development group. His career span over 20 years designing solutions for enterprise and defense organizations such as Shell, Diamond, Chrysler, and more. So Jack is our speaker for this session, and once again, sorry for starting this session late. We had a few technical issues that are solved now. Jack, the mic is yours.
Okay. Thanks, everybody. Thank you for coming to my session. I hope that you find it enlightening. Um, I have never had a manager with UX experience. Now, that doesn't seem to have hurt me too awfully much. I've had a successful career, and I'm now a manager myself. Still, I can't help but feel that I would be better. I would have been more successful. I would have had a smoother career if a design manager had been in the mix somewhere. I guess I'd have to call myself part of the old guard. I was in the third graduating class of the very first Masters of Interaction Design program in the world, the School of Design at Carnegie Mellon University. Most of my classmates were heading out to Silicon Valley, but I had reasons to stay in Pittsburgh. And so I started my career in a small software development firm called Inmedius. It was a spinoff from CMU. And it had an uncharacteristic understanding of the value of design. They already had four other designers on staff and abnormally high designer to developer ratio. My first manager was a marketing guy that fortunately didn't last long. And then I had a series of managers that had been software engineers, not surprising, it being a software development firm. One of them told me during my annual review that my skill set was deep, but without much breadth, and therefore I wasn't very versatile. Even though I could do visual design, I could do interaction design, I could conduct user research, I could write HTML and CSS, not to mention photography and video editing and a number of other skills. But my breadth just didn't include some of the specific skills that he considered to be very important, and that he either devalued or simply wasn't aware of many of the skills that I had. I think what he really meant was that I wasn't a developer. But my managers weren't all bad. I've had some very good managers that have valued my contributions, that have appreciated my skills and have pushed me to grow, pushed me to get better. And I've had managers that have taught me quite a bit about business, about management, about the overall product development process. But I've never had a design manager. Now, everyone I've spoken with about this agrees that it's more important to have a good manager than to have one with design experience. Um, you'll have to be self-driven to continue learning in that situation. You'll have to keep up with the industry on your own. And conferences like this one are a great way to do that. I fortunately found an interaction design mailing list that eventually turned into the Interaction Design Association, and I have those people and that organization to thank for keeping me going when most of the designers that I started with in that company left, and I was on my own as a UX team of one. But a good manager is going to push you to do that, right? And it's going to make sure that you have those opportunities. Of course, given the choice between two good managers, um, it's going to be advantageous for a designer to have a manager with design experience. A manager who completely understands how UX should function within an organization, who stands up for the design within the management ranks, who understands how to hire designers, who understands how to develop designers' skills individually and as a team, who understands the tools and methods a designer uses. There's currently a great demand for UX managers. I did a search just last night on UX manager jobs on LinkedIn and came up with over 3,000 results. A lot of companies are building UX teams now and growing UX teams, and there aren't enough experienced UX managers to fill those positions. It takes a long time to develop a manager, and the growth in UX is outstripping the supply. Many UX managers today, especially in the enterprise, share my path. See if this sounds familiar to you. You spent time working as a UX team of one, may have even been the first UX hire at your company. At some point, more designers are brought on board. Maybe the organization is growing and realize it needs more of you. Or maybe you've just done a really good job convincing them that you're stretched too thin and they need more of you. In my case, there were a couple designers at another location working on a specific contract under the direction of our customer. And we eventually decided to end that particular part of the business, and we pulled those designers back inside so they could work with me on the products that I had been working on. Whatever the case, suddenly there's a team, and the team needs leadership. You have seniority, you've been successful so far, you've gained the respect of your coworkers and your management, you've proven yourself, and so senior management naturally offers to promote you to be a manager of the newly formed team. And while you've been a UX team of one and you've never had a UX manager, you want to make sure that these new colleagues have what you never had. So when the company offers to promote you to management, you accept. I hadn't really aspired to be a manager. Sure, I had thought about the possibility, but it's not something that I was really working towards. I became a manager because there was a need. There was an empty space and I filled it. You might call it horror vacui. That's a term that means fear or dislike of leaving empty spaces. You know, they say nature abhors a vacuum. So do leaders. When a leader encounters a void, they immediately put in plans to fill it. This could be a void in process, a void in understanding, a void in skill, a void in communication, or a void in responsibility, especially responsibility. I'm talking about servant leadership. Don't become a manager because you want a bigger paycheck or because you want more influence or because you want to be a leader. Be a leader first. Be influential first. Then when there's a need, when there's a vacuum of responsibility, you'll be ready to fill it. As Jared Spool has said, to be a manager, you have to be promoted. To be a leader, all you need are followers. The best managers are first leaders. Now, several things happen when you're promoted to be a manager. The first thing that happens is that you realize that you have a lot of new things to learn. Depending on the organization, you may be given some training, but it won't be enough. In my case, it came about a year after the promotion, and it was primarily focused on the law, you know, keeping me from getting myself and the company into a lawsuit. But you aren't likely going to be trained on how to lead a design team. You're going to have a serious case of imposter syndrome. Every manager I've talked to about this adamantly admits to having had imposter syndrome. And more often than not, they still do at least some of the time. But it's going to be okay. If your journey has been anything like the one I've recounted, you already know what you need to do. You've had experience with good managers. You've had experience with bad managers. So you already have a pretty good idea of what you should do and what you shouldn't do. You already know what you yourself needed and what you were missing. And you know how to learn on the job, right? You're already self-motivated to continuously improve. So you attend conferences, right? Like this one. You find peers and mentors that you can learn from, that can give you advice and help you along the way. And you probably read a lot of books. In fact, I want to give you a few book recommendations right now. The Making of a Manager by Julie Zhu, outstanding book, written from the perspective of a design manager who went through a very similar path to the one that I just laid out. Org Design for Design Orgs by Peter Merholz and Kristen Skinner. Excellent, excellent book on how to build and lead and maintain uh, a design organization. And of course, the books don't have to be specifically about design management either. There are plenty of great books about management in general. The first one I read when I became a manager is Managing People by Eric Swenson, recommended to me by Dan Saffer. And also, this isn't a book, but Interaction 20, the conference, Interaction 20, Doug Powell gave a wonderful talk called Designers as Leaders. Now that we have a seat at the table, how do we prove we belong? Great talk. You can find that on Vimeo. And I encourage you to, in the chat, go ahead and provide your own recommendations if you have any. Now, somewhat related to imposter syndrome, the second thing that happens when you become a manager, you're going to have this desire to be right. After all, you're in charge, right? You're the one that your team is supposed to be looking up to for direction and guidance. So shouldn't you know more than everyone else on your team? It feels like if you're wrong, you have failed, and maybe you shouldn't be a manager after all. But what you have to realize is that it's not your job to be right. In fact, the less decisions you make for your team, the better. Your job is to develop and empower your team so that they can make the decisions and they can determine what is right. Every one of those books I recommended will tell you that you should be hiring people that are smarter than you. If you do your job well, your team members will surpass you. They'll become better at doing the work than you are. Because the third thing that happens when you take on a management role is that you stop designing. And that scares a lot of people. But you're going to have a new set of responsibilities that will leave you with a lot less time to get your hands dirty. You're going to spend a lot more time in meetings. So many meetings. My designers often comment on how full my calendar is. You're going to spend a lot more time responding to email. Sometimes I think I should have gotten an ME degree instead of an MA, Masters of Email. Um, Slack, Skype, all of the other communication channels you have, you're going to spend a lot of time there. And you're going to spend a lot of more time dealing with administrative work, bureaucracy, red tape. It's a lot of it, and it's really frustrating. You'll spend more time reviewing the work of others than doing work yourself. And to be honest, that's going to become one of the highlights of your week. This is one of the big reasons that designers don't become managers. We really like designing. We like doing the work. We like meeting with customers and observing users, and we like solving problems, and we don't want to stop doing those things. A lot of design managers end up eventually returning to contributor roles for this very reason. I'd encourage any design manager to find something that you can do to continue designing, continue making things. Keep a little side project and make sure you set aside time in your schedule to work on it. This practice will keep you engaged and keep you from burning out. It took me a while, probably the better part of a year, maybe longer, to reach the point at which I was able to be just as gratified by the successes of my team as I had been of my own work. It was really hard to let go of the work. There are things that I knew I could knock out in a couple hours that would take a junior designer many iterations to get right and to get done. But I had to learn to let go because I was just stealing the opportunity for them to learn. But I have good news for you. If you can reach that point, and you will, you'll also likely discover that you can approach management as a design problem. And that means that you get to keep designing. You're just designing with different material and different tools. Very often, when I would tell designers that I had become a manager, the first thing they would ask was, "Do you like it?" The expectation seemed to be that, I wouldn't like it as much as being a designer. And it took time. I had to grow into it, but I do. I do like it. I find it very rewarding to provide a safe and supportive space for designers to try and fail and grow. I love teaching. In fact, I've been teaching as an adjunct now for about 15 years. And that's another common trait that I've found among UX managers, excuse me. I really enjoy mentoring my team. I've felt exaltation when one of my designers was praised by a customer for a job well done. I've been elated when presenting a well-earned raise. Don't get me wrong, it's not all flowers and sunshine. There have been days when I felt that yoke of responsibility on my shoulders. There are days when I'm so frustrated that I'm ready to beat on things. Drums, I beat on drums. I'm a drummer. Drumming is great for stress relief. I I cried on my wife's shoulder the first time I had to lay off a talented and valued employee. But I also saw to it that she was prepared with the experience to find employment elsewhere and a portfolio to prove it. I was confident that she would quickly find a new job, and she did. She's now a UX team of one, the first at a company that may be hiring a couple more in a year or two. So the cycle repeats itself. The first time I attended a conference with my new title on my badge, a young woman asked me, "What is a UX manager?" um, as I recall, I gave her a pretty lame answer. She kind of caught me off guard, and I probably just said something like, "Well, I lead a small team of designers," and but I'd like to rectify that lapse now. A good UX manager is a gas. No, I don't mean that we're the life of the party, and I don't mean that we smell bad. If you remember your elementary school science, you know that a gas expands to fill its container. We expand to fill the roles in which we find ourselves. We learn and we grow and we fail and we grow and we help others grow along with us. In his article, Leadership is the Strategic Issue, Richard Farson told us that designers have even better preparation than most to assume leadership. They are especially qualified. We're gap fillers. We're the glue, the connective tissue. We're the bridge builders. Designers have a skill set that allows them to meet all the various stakeholders in the middle, to facilitate compromises, to provide options, to communicate a vision and orient everyone towards a common goal. Isn't that also what a good manager does? So I want to encourage you, when the opportunity presents itself, it's okay to doubt your readiness, but don't be afraid to step up to the challenge. You can be a gas. You can expand. You can fill the vacuum. We need more good UX managers, especially ones that don't look like me. So why not you? Thank you very much. I'd like to especially thank Anna Abovaya and Ryan Cummings and Carol Ford, three wonderful UX managers who were gracious enough to share their journeys to UX management with me in the preparation for this talk. I'd also like to thank the managers that I've learned so much from over the years, especially Rob Veltri and Mark Shipley. And with that, if we have time, I think I can take some questions.
Yes, we do have time. Uh, that's amazing. You've managed to do like a 20-minute talk without a slide and still make it engaging. That's remarkable.
Well, thank you.
So, like, I've heard on the comments that someone says like, hearing Jack talking is like hearing an audiobook. Like, so wise.
Well,
Thanks.
I've been there.
Okay. So we do have questions. Someone asked, what resources or path would you recommend for a manager who is passionate about and understanding design, but does not have the experience? Basic is the other way around. It's a manager who want to become UX.
Okay, right. So a manager who doesn't have design experience and wants to learn some. Um, Tell you what, there is an outstanding conference put on by Rosenfeld Media. It's called Design at Scale. It used to be the Enterprise Experience Conference, but they've changed the name to Design at Scale. Um, and that conference I've attended it once before. It has outstanding content about um, how a design organization operates, and I'd highly recommend that. It's good for designers. It's also very good for anybody who is involved in an organization that includes design. It brings perspectives from both design and from other parts of the organization that are involved. So that's a really good one.
Okay, thanks, Jack. We do have another one here. No, actually, we have couple of them. How do you manage your schedules such that you don't lose the flair for design?
How do I manage my schedule so did you say so I don't lose the flair for design?
Yeah.
Okay, so um, one of the things that I consider to be extremely important and always make sure I have time for is reviewing the work. And I mentioned that in my talk. Um, Design critiques are hugely important. They're important for the designers on your team. They're important for the quality of the work. They're also important for you as a manager. One that helps you keep in touch with what's going on, right? And being able to give you those opportunities to teach and to mentor. Um, but it also allows you to stay connected to the work and be able to feel like you really are a part of it and you're contributing to it. So critiques is a huge part, and in your individual one-on-ones, a lot of that is talking about um, team development, but you can also take some time there to look at work. And then, as I mentioned, keep your hands in something. One of the things I'm particularly interested is just the innovation process and bringing new things. Um, and so I try to participate in hackathons, right? Anytime our organization has a hackathon, I try to put together a team to do something. And so things like that give me the opportunity to get my hands dirty and keep involved.
Nice, thanks. There is one more. Are there any major difference between UX designers and UX managers?
Um, well, sure. There are a lot of difference between UX designers and UX managers. The primary one is responsibility. Um, but if you're talking about um, qualifications, um, like I said, there's more to learn. You're going to have to learn about a lot of administration, a lot of administrative things that you're going to have to take care of, how the organization works in ways that you don't necessarily have to worry about as much as a designer. But like I said, as a UX designer, you already are developing a lot of the skills that are going to make for a good UX manager. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, thanks. Last one. How did you manage your imposter syndrome as UX manager?
Oh, yeah. Um, how do you manage the imposter syndrome? That's tough. One of the things that helped me was having friends, colleagues outside of my company that um, were going through similar issues that I could talk to, right? Peers. Uh, people that I mentioned the Interaction Design Association. Through that organization, I've made great friends around the world who were uh, engaged in the same activities I was when I was just a UX team of one, and that were able to, empathize with me and share how they were dealing with solutions. So that's the best advice I can give, is find those people that you can talk to and you can commiserate with about the problems you're having, and that'll give you the encouragement and the strength to get through that.
Okay. Uh, we have no more questions. So thanks, Jack, for your fantastic presentation. We really appreciate your time and sharing your experience with us. I do have one particular before we close. So does based on the company you from, can you tell if it's any way different from other normal tech companies? Because when people hear like Boeing, like the idea is airplanes, very sophisticated softwares and very complex processes. Would you say that your daily routine is kind of different to a normal software company?
I doubt my daily routine is that much different, honestly. I mean, we're working in an agile process, so we have scrum teams, we have stand-ups, we have the typical meetings and so forth that you would expect to have. The Probably the major difference is just the scale. I mean, Boeing is enormous, and that brings with it a lot of opportunity, but also brings with it a lot of the red tape and the bureaucracy that I mentioned before. And so I think the scale is probably the biggest difference there. But once you get down to the individual teams, I expect it's very much the same.
Okay, I think that was. This is not the question; it was a comment. Uh, she say Laura Scudder says, "Stop designing scares me." Oh, says stop designing scares me and some of my manager, but otherwise you may fall into the trap of micromanaging. True is that better designers than me, they need to be better. Okay, okay. So she was just complimenting one of your
Yes, Laura, nice to see
point.
you.
Okay, actually, Laura. Okay, there is more questions coming. Hmm. Yeah, and actually, Laura asked a question here. How do you gently tell a new UX manager to stop overhearing over the design with you?
To stop hovering over, yeah, that one. um, Hopefully, if this is, hopefully you're able to develop a good enough trusting relationship with your manager that, in your one-on-one, you can tell them that, you know, I need a little space. Design takes some space. You can't just do all of it up in where everybody can see it. You need some time to be able to fumble through some things on your own before you have to put that before people. And managers need to understand that. Um, so I would hope that, in a one-on-one meeting with your manager, that you would be able to have an honest discussion with them about that, and that they would be understanding of that, right? And would listen enough and have the desire to want to improve themselves and in a way that can help you. So that's my suggestion, is to just have that honest discussion.
Okay. My team gave us like more 2 minutes here, a bonus. So I'll take one more question, and
Sure.
this time, someone asked if there is any certification course to take or any resources that can help me become a better UX manager.
Uh, I expect there are certification courses. I don't know of any. I don't personally put a lot of stock in certification courses like that. I think you can do just as well teaching yourself through good books, good conferences. uh, the certification is generally a way for some company to make money off of you paying for a test, in my opinion. But um, uh, the resources that I mentioned in my talk are a great place to start. And there are there are so many good books out there about management that uh, you know find 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 good books, read a lot, and as I said before, find a mentor. Mentors are extremely important to being able um, to to learn and progress and develop your own capabilities, especially as a manager. So that's my number one recommendation, is to find a good mentor.
Okay, fantastic. Oh, the question keeps coming, but I think it was the same one. Yeah, it was the same one phrased differently. Okay, everyone. Thanks for being part of this fantastic talk. Thanks, Jack, again for joining us. We have another one with Daniel, like which are already running, so you can go and jump to that session. So see you that side. Bye.
Okay, thanks for the opportunity.
We appreciate.